Welcome back to Thriller Mania, guys. I'm so glad to see you again. Today, we are counting down 7 disturbing Asian thriller series that were actually based on terrifying true events. At number 7, we enter a dark web of obsession and cold cases. 17 years ago, a quiet South Korean town was paralyzed by terror. A brutal serial killer, known only as Gap Dong, vanished without a trace after committing a string of horrific murders. The case went cold. But now, just as the statute of limitations expires, a series of identical new crimes sends shockwaves through the police department. Gap Dong is back. What makes this series absolutely bone-chilling is that it's based on the infamous Hwaseong serial murders. Between 1986 and 1991, a real monster hunted women in the rural areas of Hwaseong. It became the most notorious unsolved case in South Korean history, involving tens of thousands of suspects. The killer wasn't actually caught until decades later, in 2019, leaving a dark, painful scar on the entire nation. In the show, an aging detective who destroyed his life trying to catch the original killer is forced to teammate with a young officer. Together, they enter a deadly, claustrophobic cat and mouse game against a copycat who knows their every weakness. Gap Dong is a masterfully crafted, slow-burn psychological puzzle. At number 6, a mysterious radio frequency connects 2 detectives across time. A cold case profiler in 2015 finds an old walkie-talkie and suddenly hears a voice. It's a detective speaking to him from the year 1989. Together, they begin using information from the future to solve cold cases in the past. But the crimes they try to prevent are terrifyingly real. The show dramatizes some of South Korea's most notorious true events, including the brutal Hwaseong serial murders and the heartbreaking 1997 Park Chorong-Bitnari kidnapping case. It shows the painful truth of how police corruption and old technology let monsters walk free for decades. Signal is an absolute masterpiece that perfectly blends supernatural sci-fi with gritty, heartbreaking true crime. At number 5, the hunt for a serial killer tears through the fabric of time. In 1986, a dedicated homicide detective is desperately chasing a brutal murderer who leaves a strange mark on his female victims. During a frantic pursuit, the detective follows the killer into a dark, eerie tunnel. But as he steps out on the other side, he discovers he has been violently thrown 30 years into the future, straight into the year 2017. Just like Gap Dong, this show is deeply rooted in South Korea's most terrifying real-life nightmare, the Hwaseong serial murders. For decades, the real killer hid in plain sight, completely evading justice while families wept. Tunnel explores the heartbreaking reality of what happens when a case goes cold, and how modern technology and DNA profiling finally helped unmask a real-life monster who thought he got away with murder. Stranded in a future he doesn't understand, the detective has to team up with 2 modern officers to crack the cases. Together, they realize that the crimes from 30 years ago are directly connected to new murders happening right now. Every episode is a race against time where the past and present completely collide. It's a relentless, masterfully written psychological thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very final second. At number 4, a single phone call separates life from death. After a serial killer brutally murders his wife, a devastated detective teams up with a brilliant voice profiler at the emergency 112 call center. Using her extraordinary, superhuman hearing, she tracks down killers by decoding the faintest sounds in the background of emergency calls. The show is deeply unsettling because its most horrific cases are based on shocking true events in South Korea. One of the main storylines directly mirrors the infamous Oh Eun-chun murder case of 2012, a brutal kidnapping that exposed major flaws in the emergency response system and paralyzed the entire nation with fear. Voice is a claustrophobic, high-stakes psychological puzzle that will keep your pulse pounding until the very end. Opening our top 3 is a gritty, hyper-realistic dive into the minds of real-life monsters. Set in the late 1990s, South Korea is shaken by a wave of random, brutal serial killings. With no motives and no clues, the police create their very first criminal profiling team, forcing a brilliant detective to sit face-to-face with psychopaths to understand how they think. What makes this show a masterpiece is that it's based on the real memoirs of Korea's pioneer profiler, Kwon Il-yong. The series directly dramatizes the terrifying cases of two of the country's most infamous real-life serial killers, Yoo Young-chul, who murdered over 20 people, and Jong Nam-gyu. It's a chilling look at the psychological toll of fighting pure evil. Through the Darkness is a dark, slow-burn psychological masterpiece that completely strips away the Hollywood glamour of crime-solving. At number 2, a rookie cop faces a brutal serial killer who paralyzes the entire nation. Inspired by the shocking, real-life 2017 Incheon elementary school murder, this show explores a terrifying question. What if we could identify the psychopathic gene before birth? Mouse is an absolute mind-bending psychological maze with the most insane plot twists you will ever see. Finally, at number 1, we reach the absolute pinnacle of raw, dark, and uncompromising true crime television. Forget everything you know about polished Hollywood thrillers. This is 532, a masterpiece from Kazakhstan that will violently shatter your comfort zone from the very first frame. The story follows Shalkar, a broken, alcoholic former detective who is pulled out of retirement to catch a new serial killer whose brutal methods perfectly mimic the monsters Shalkar hunted back in the bloody 1990s. What makes 532 an absolute nightmare to watch is that almost every single episode is directly based on horrific, real-life serial killers who terrorized Kazakhstan. The series dramatizes real, bone-chilling crimes, including the terrifying cases of cannibal Nikolai Jumagaliev, the ruthless chimney sweep killers, and the infamous female organ trafficking syndicates. The show doesn't hide anything. It exposes the grimy, gritty, and deeply disturbing reality of investigative work during a time of absolute social collapse. As Shalkar dives into his memories, we see the devastating psychological toll of his job. You won't just watch a detective solving puzzles. You will watch a man slowly losing his mind, his family, and his soul to the absolute darkness he is fighting. The pacing is relentless, the visuals are incredibly graphic, and the sense of claustrophobia and dread is so thick you can practically feel it. 532 is not just a show, it's a punch to the gut that stays with you long after the final credits. It is, without a doubt, the most intense, authentic, and unforgettable true crime thriller series ever made. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next one. Bye.